Over the past 35 years, I have been a theater artist, a teacher, an administrator, and an author who educates and teaches people how to educate teenagers. Time and time again, I have witnessed firsthand how bringing in the cultural arts together with community activism can transform the process of learning. There's something catalytic about the combination of these processes that shifts learning from something that students have to do to something that students want to do. The shift is not unique to teenagers, but because of where they are in their social and emotional development, it is particularly powerful. In each entry of this new interactive video journal, you're going to meet somebody doing this kind of cultural activist work somewhere in the United States. It could be a 71-year-old performance artist saving lives in the San Francisco County jails. It could be a 13-year-old muralist working to change school board policies in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. The common thread is that all of them are using their creativity to transform their community and themselves. My task is to find these people for you and to get them talking about how they do and why they do what they do so that you can reflect on it and find what's useful to adapt to your work, whether it's in the classroom or in the community. First, a couple of housekeeping notes. Yes, having a copy of my book, The Beginner's Guide to Community-Based Arts, is pretty valuable if you're going to be participating in this online journal. Most of the episodes, at least the first several, are based on stories from The Beginner's Guide. If you'd like, it's available for purchase through New Village Press. Number two, I mean it when I say this is interactive video journal. We want you to watch the entry and then comment on it. Hi, Rhodessa. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you for bringing some of your collaborators with you. Could you tell us just kind of really briefly about the work of the Medea Project and what it's about in about one or two sentences, if you can?
The Medea Project now is a 40-year-old project that we're doing in jails around the world, working with women, finding ways for women to give voice to their lives and to their experience. Basically is what it is. And it is also a theater project, so that we take the words that the women share with us, and we build a script so that they may go on stage and
Awesome.
Share with the community, because they are somebody's daughter, somebody's sister, somebody's mama.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing this work so long, it's time that they do it. And I just want to introduce Lisa Frias and Fellerine Bongolan, who are now my collaborators and my partners in crime. It's been a long, long time for the Medea Project. And as the cartoon shows, that now we are dealing with that much more expansion as a company. I'm on the road a lot, doing a lot of university stuff around artist social change. And Lisa and Faye are I could not do this without them.
I gotcha, yeah.
They are my teaching artists, yes.
Yeah, so your story is focused on the theme of honesty and the importance of honesty in artists working in the community. And your quote is actually, be as honest and open with yourself as you ask others to be. So could you and your colleagues talk for a couple minutes with us about how that notion has evolved for you and what teachers of middle and high school students might be able to learn from what you've learned?
Mm-hmm. Well, to start with, as the founder of this project, stay woke. Got to stay woke and know where you are, and also be respectful. Because I go in for the heart. So how am I going to get the heart from these women if I'm not willing to share my heart? So for me, it's really about a respectful approach to it, and know that if I'm open and clear, it is a great way to get it all started with them. But I've been speaking with the group, and I think that, Lisa, you were talking about high school students and being a teacher. So, I'll pass it to you.
Okay. So I'm a full-time middle school dance teacher. in addition to my work in Medea Project and other things. And I don't know, two things come to mind. I feel like there has to be a rigorous inquiry into your personal blind spots as a teacher. It's not something you do once and call it a day. It has to be ongoing. It has to be rigorous. It has to be fearless in a lot of ways, especially in schools where the culture and ethnicity of the teachers is not reflective of the population of the students. Then that rigor is that much more essential. And I think, creating those personal relationships with kids and creating structures where they can feel safe to be able to share what they carry. I mean, kids in classrooms in very similarly to what the work is that we do in the jail, sometimes what they're carrying makes our jaws hit the floor,
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of times what I've seen in school situations is that very well-meaning teachers will say things like, I'm available if they want to come and talk about these things, but that's very different than what are the structures and frameworks you're creating so that there is an invitation for kids to be able to talk about the trauma and to figure out their social emotional coping mechanisms. And, the way to do that is not just creating the structures, but it's like being insanely real with them, right? Because as teachers, you have to kind of strike this balance. You have to be able to have classroom management, right? Like you can't have it be a shit show free for all in your classroom. There has to be guidelines and rules and understanding of what those are. But kids, they know if you're real. They know, if you're sharing something real. At the beginning of the year with my kiddos, I always say, I'm going to refer to your grown-up, and I talk about how my son, having been a single mom, would come home with assignments that he was supposed to do about his dad, and we would sit and stare at each other and go, well, duh, ain't happening, right? And so I feel like that's that part of sharing that little bit of personal information. So like, oh, this is a real person.
And this is probably the first time that they are actually sharing the deepest, darkest story. And that we need to be ready to catch when it happens. So our mode is being very receptive. And as Lisa and I have grown in this position, is to hear the story that is starting to rise from the narrative, from the story that the women are struggling to tell. And then when we hear it, we start lifting it into we put it into a creative space so that they can begin to find, the thrust of the story, the generation of the trauma, and then how we can help heal, or how we can help them heal themselves. And
I'm sorry.
It happens through writing,
Yeah,
and group talking, because everybody, not just us and that one individual, but us in the group has a similar story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
So we create not just peerage between us and the individual, but it's a supportive group that finds safety to share these stories.
I think it's part of that ongoing reflection. For example, in the classroom, there are certain things I'm not comfortable sharing in terms of my personal traumas in history that I am comfortable sharing in the jail, mm-hmm. right, or on stage, because I think some stuff it's just kind of a gut feeling around what is too much to share, and and I guess it comes to me like this idea of standing with, right? Sometimes it's not always that we're talking about our stories. A lot of times it is. Something that Rhodessa said many years ago that has stayed with me forever is someone asked her, how do you get women to tell their stories? You don't get anyone to tell their story, you tell your own, right? Mm-hmm.